I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Planning Commission of September 1st, 2021. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. Please note the Planning Commission will be allowing testimony on agenda items by video conferencing for those individuals who pre-registered. If you parked in the parking lot across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are required. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. The Planning Commission action today is final on the following agenda items. 1.4, Special Permit 21033, 2.1, County Special Permit 21032, and 4.3, County Special Permit 21020. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held August 18th, 2021.
So moved, Campbell.
Second, Joy.
Jerry?
Okay. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, motion carried 6-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Jerry to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once these items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, please call the items on the consent agenda.
Okay. Before I do that, I would note that item 1.1, change of zone 21030, is being removed from the consent agenda and scheduled for public hearing today under item 3 of today's agenda. Also, I would note that Commissioner Joy has declared a conflict of interest on agenda item 1.4, special permit 21033, and therefore will be abstaining from that vote, the vote on today's consent agenda. First item is item 1.2, change of zone 21031 from AGR, Agricultural Residential District, to R3 Residential District on property generally located at 2701 West A Street. Item 1.3 is comprehensive plan conformance 21017 to review as to conformance with the 2040 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, a proposed amendment to the Wyuka redevelopment plan that identifies the Gatehouse Rose redevelopment project for the construction of 98 affordable residential units on property generally located between Vine and O Streets, east of 36th Street and west of Wyuka Cemetery. And the last item on today's consent agenda is item 1.4, special permit 21033 to allow for an early childhood care facility on property generally located at 1821 and 43 K Street. This is final action on this item unless appealed to the City Council within 14 days. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites?
No.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any of these items? If so, please stand and state that item.
Hello, we wish to speak on change of zones 1.1, changing O2 to B3 business district.
Okay, so that is the item that is being removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other items of interest to come off the consent? Okay,
Okay,
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second, Ball.
okay. Jerry?
okay. Ball,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Joy,
Abstain.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Edgerton,
Yes.
and Core.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
I will now ask Jerry to call the request for deferral.
Okay, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission defer public hearing and action on Agenda Item 2.1, which is County Special Permit 21032, to allow for an accessory dwelling unit on property generally located at 15525 South 176th Street, to allow for re-advertising. That would defer this matter to the September 15th hearing.
Move deferral.
Okay,
Second, Joy.
Jerry?
Campbell,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Ryman Yost,
Yes.
Edgerton,
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay. We will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and/or included as part of the record, please place the information in the folder on the podium. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak, unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes. The clerk will then indicate you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate that your time is up. If during your testimony you have, I already said that, so I will move on and say the Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Okay, Item 3.1 is change of zone 21030 from O2 Suburban Office District to B3 Business District on property generally located at 4821 Lowell Avenue. Staff recommendation is for approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this item?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting the site?
No. Stephanie.
Good afternoon, members of the commission. Stephanie Rouse, Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. This is a request to change the zoning from O2 Suburban Office District to B3 Business District located at 4821 Lowell Avenue, just east of 48th Street. Currently, the parcel has split zoning on it. The western side of the parcel is B3 zoning. The eastern side of the parcel is O2 zoning. It currently has an existing home that was converted to an office use on the western side, along with a garage in the back that is currently in for building permit to be converted to another office space. The site has 6 parking stalls that were added to it. The parking stalls are located on the western lot. However, the drive aisle to access the parking stalls is located on the eastern parking lot that's zoned O2. The O2 district does not allow parking lots as a primary use, and having only a parking lot means that it's not in compliance. So for the existing structures to be in compliance with the parking requirements, they're requesting to change the zoning to B3 on the eastern lot as part of this parcel in order to allow parking lots as a primary use on the site. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have many. Can you put the map and kind of show us, like when you say the eastern side of the lot and the western side of the lot, I want to make sure that I'm understanding the entire lot size.
Yes, so lots 5
Maybe use
and
this. You
6.
have this one.
Oh, sure. So the hatched area is the eastern side of the lot that's currently zoned O2. The area just to the west of it is the existing loft and room
But
buildings.
where the house sits is
Zone B3
still part of this one lot.
parcel. Yeah, there's
Okay.
2 lots, Lot 5 and Lot 6.
Okay. So I want to mention a couple things that I think are important. This is a house, not an office. And it's retail, not an office. So it's not an office building, it's a house. Was any other zoning, like RT, thought of for this, residential transitional?
No, I would have to double check and see if parking lots are allowed as a primary use, but B3 seemed the most logical, given that there's B3 adjacent to it, that the comprehensive plan has commercial designated for this
I
area.
understand that, but, with this letter that came in and concerns from the neighbors, I also understand that this is a big transition from them, from O2 to B3, right next to their lot. And so I would like to find some way that we can either lessen this impact on them, by doing either a different zoning or putting some rules on the B3, somehow, so we can kind of meet in the middle, because from my understanding is this happened because the parking lot was created without maybe getting full permission first. And then now we're in this situation where it's not, we have this drive aisle in this O2 that isn't allowed. So I'd like to kind of meet in the middle here so that we can protect the neighbors and also get this done for the business.
Yeah, the other options would be to do a conditional zoning agreement, and we could take a look at what kind of uses that would be allowed in the B3 that wouldn't fit this site, and we'd probably request a 2-week deferral in order to research that and come to a conclusion. Another option is to do a special permit for a parking lot, because it's not allowed as a use in the O2 because there is residential zoning on the block. But through a special permit, you could do a parking lot as a primary use, but it would be very specific to that
And
one.
still leave it as an O2,
Correct,
but give them a special permit just for the parking lot.
yes.
Okay?
Ultimately, I'd really like to protect that house so that if this business isn't there in the future, it could revert back to a dwelling if needed or if wanted.
Can a dwelling be in an O2?
Yes, but not the B3.
Okay?
Along those lines, one of the challenges is that this is 2 lots, and so that second lot could be separated and sold, and that's that protection for the adjoining landowner that the concern that Tracy has described. Other questions or discussion for Stephanie?
Was there a downfall for doing it as a special permit on an O2? Is there a reason why that wasn't looked at?
The B3 was just a more long-term solution for the property owner to be able to look at that lot as a comprehensive whole and be able to kind of do some expansion in the future.
Okay.
Which property owns the O2? Is it the design lot, or is it the house?
The lot immediately to the west here.
Yeah.
That
No,
owns the loft
The lot
business.
itself that's highlighted.
Right.
Yes, the lot that's highlighted is owned in conjunction with the lot to the west.
Okay.
Which is where the loft business is.
Got it. And that has zoning of B3?
B3.
Okay.
Other questions for Stephanie? Thank you. Testimony from the applicant? Yes.
Hello, I'm Laura Lee Lesling. I'm the property owner. My residence is 4800 Bridle Lane in Lincoln, and I own the property there. I think Stephanie stated the reasoning why. We'd filed for a building permit to basically update that small parcel behind the loft. And that's when we found out that there was two different zones, and it was divided. I do want to correct one statement, though, that was made. I applied for a building permit for the loft, and they asked me to pour the parking lot in order to comply with the building permit. So now I've poured that parking lot because they've requested I do that, and now they're telling me that there's no way I can get into the parking lot that they requested I pour to go along with the loft. So
chicken and the
from
egg.
building and safety standpoint, they're saying that there's only one way to do this, and that is to get the zoning changed, which is when we contacted the city and filed for permit. So I'm just trying to do what I'm being told by building and safety.
Right. Perfect. Questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have one.
Yes.
Do you have any opposition to having a special permit on that lot? So it would allow you to maintain the parking lots and such?
Tell me what more that would mean to me.
Well, as I understand it, the special permit would allow you to either build a home on that lot or have that lot as a parking area, but it would not allow you to build a large business, a tall business, 45 feet,
Yeah.
things like that.
Right, I would have no opposition to that then. Basically, what I'm trying to do is just align the parking lot to the businesses.
Right.
We have no intentions of expanding that property or that business. And I don't know that that would have a negative effect on what I'm trying to do.
No?
When they asked me to pour that, they asked me to pour, I think it was like 3 or 4 stalls with one of them being handicapped. We went ahead and poured that whole line, just so if we did ever do anything with the little structure behind there, that we'd be in compliance. And we're trying to get this resolved so we can move forward with remodeling it. So my only objection would be the delay in continuing to move forward. But in terms of not being able to build a building there, I have no objections.
Okay.
So my question to you is going to be, would you be open to a 2-week delay? Because I'm not sure that I can support this as is unless, we have some conditions or something, and that would maybe take planning a little bit of time to come up with.
Yeah, I know that building and safety is not city planning and vice versa. What I've been told by them is that I can continue to work on the building at my risk, where if I close anything up past inspections, obviously, being in the business, that's at my expense. So I know that I can continue to do that. I just want to have everything in place, so everything's accurate. If it's a 2-week delay, I can live with a 2-week delay, but I'd rather not live with the 2 if I can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Testimony in support of this application. Is there any neutral testimony? And testimony in opposition?
Hello, my name is John Cartier. I am an attorney here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm here representing my family. I'm going to put this, not quite as good a map, but...
Could you state your address for the record,
sure.
please?
My address, I live at 6715 Bethany Park Drive, but I'm here representing my brother who owns the 2 adjoining properties right here from the O2 district. And we came here in opposition to the zone change for 2 primary reasons. The first, we believe that this upzoning of the O2 to a B3 district would seriously impact the residential character of this district. With going to an O2 to a B3, as you know, there are some significant changes. Probably the biggest one for us would be a 0-inch setback. So when we're looking at the property division right here, in a future event, whether the current owners sell or maintain the property, they would be allowed to build a building basically right on that borderline. And this doesn't do a good job, but there's literally a residential property right there where my mom lives right now as a part of her retirement. It was a huge reason why we bought the property from the owners to begin with. So that setback would probably seriously harm our property value. The second reason that we are opposed to this change, and I think that was mentioned pretty well here by Commissioner Core, is that there is probably some less permanent solutions right now. I think if we look at the application, this is about 2 parking spaces that they want for the existing office space building. It's worth noting that the current owners basically own, so they own this, and then they own the property down here. And in total, around the surrounding office area, there's about 44 parking spaces. And so our understanding from Stephanie Roos was that you could do either a reallocation of current parking around the area for that office, or we can do the conditional use permit, I believe was what it was called. And we would be absolutely more than happy to work with the owners. As I stated, we purchased the property from Laura Lee, and we've been very, very happy with our investment so far, and we just want to keep it intact. And as we expected it would be, because I think, as you all know, the whole purpose of the O2 designation is to act really as a buffer between a residential district and a commercial district. So if we all of a sudden get rid of that buffer, the primary use of those 2 adjoining properties is residential. So, I mean, you could build a restaurant, you could build practically anything with a 0-inch setback from that current residential address, which would seriously impact our property, and we're in opposition to that. So in closing, I'd just like to state again, we're more than willing to work with the commission or the current owners to find them a solution to get them the property parking that they need, but we don't think that you should upzone the entire zone there, because that would have some permanent consequences we are very uncomfortable with. Thank you.
Questions?
That's Da Vinci's right there, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I want to make sure I was thinking correctly.
And then down there is like a little dog like grooming
Yes.
service, and it's got
The
a lot
old
of
Dairy
parking as
Queen,
well.
yeah.
Would you have any opposition to a special permit?
No, sir, absolutely not. We really appreciate the Lees, and we've been doing business with them so far, and we want to continue a good relationship. So whatever we can do to help them out, because it sounds like it's a pretty frustrating issue with the city that we need to help fix them with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other testimony in opposition? Staff questions?
Yeah, I have a few. Stephanie, I just wanted to verify the setbacks under B3 are 0 for that side setback.
That's correct.
And then, so, okay, I understand, this is what I think I understand, that this was created because Laura Lee needed to have some parking spaces to use that, I call it a garage, I don't know if it's really a garage, that back property for, as an office space. So, he did mention there's a lot of parking around there, and I know that we have some opportunities to create like parking agreements within so many feet. Could they do something like that here?
Yes, so she would have to remove the concrete in the O2 zone property, and she couldn't use those stalls for the business, but if there were extra stalls, we'd have to take a look at the existing businesses, make sure they had enough parking, and then any extra stalls she could lease for this location, if those were available.
Okay, so she could just have I forget what we could label those. I don't want to say a shared parking agreement. Maybe that is what you guys call them. But she could have a parking agreement with Da Vinci's next door where, they lease 2 spots or whatever it is that they need.
But they would still have to tear up what they've already put in. That doesn't seem to be a problem for the neighbors at this point.
Correct.
And she would have to tear it up, not just not use, not use it.
I believe that's true.
And she only put this down because building and safety told her to.
Correct. Well, it was part of the building permit for when they did the renovation to do the loft, the primary building, as an office use, so those original 4 stalls were poured for that use.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. I'd ask you not to speculate about what building and safety did or did not do unless they're here. There's a building permit that was granted in 2018. I don't think it's appropriate to say, one group or another
Sure,
unless
the
they're
only
here.
reason why I brought that up is because someone from the city told her to do this when
No,
we could have.
what I'm saying is, I don't think that's accurate unless you have building safety here to explain the
Sure.
circumstances.
Okay, so to me, the problem is, go ahead. To me, it comes down to, we need to think outside the box and not just automatically convert this to B3 when there are several other options available. And I don't think that we should take into account tearing up concrete costs, that this should have been addressed before that was ever put in.
What would be required to change this request to a special permit?
So that would likely be about a 4-week delay, so it would be a whole new application. So I believe what you would do is deny the zone change, and then she would come back in with a special permit request. And so it would go on to the next available agenda.
But that's just one option. We could also delay it 2 weeks and do a conditional zoning agreement and basically put conditions on this that are O2 in nature, but it's B3.
Correct. So it'd still
That
change
would
it.
just be a 2.
That'd be a speedier with.
Yeah, and I think,
Right, yeah. Okay.
Question on that last point. So with the conditions, but still being a B3, how would that impact any future changes to that zoning, right? I mean, it is a change to the zone. So it would have to be a request or application to change it back, which is highly unlikely will happen, right?
Correct, yeah, so it would be B3, and then it would just limit whatever uses get limited. But if you wanted to do a single-family dwelling, yeah, it would be another zone change.
it would kind of be the best of both worlds, because you have the B3 zoning, she can have the parking lot by right, but you're also protecting the neighbors, because then we can put things in like the setbacks and that kind of stuff that O2 would have.
I think it's beyond the purview of the commission to decide what the next action is. I mean, I think we need to take action on the change of zone that's in front of us, approval or denial, and then the applicant can work with the city on what they feel is the best next step.
David Carey, 555 South 10th Street with the Planning Department. I think if the commissioners feel like a 2-week delay is appropriate to discuss further what could be part of a zoning agreement, that's something that could be done today, and therefore you would not necessarily have to approve or deny the change of zone today.
Right, we could just postpone it.
So that, I think if that's what what most of you would prefer to do, that's something we could do, and it would be a 2-week delay. As Stephanie said, that the special permit would be another application and basically a 4-week delay, but that is a viable option as well.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Stephanie? Thank you. Applicant rebuttal. You have any last comments you'd like to make?
Just a couple.
Thank you.
And I think I just want you to understand the parking situation around there, just to be clear. So Da Vinci's, when we applied for the building permit for 4821 Lowell for the loft, we did approach Da Vinci's and asked them if we could rent spaces from them, because it was right in front. And they basically said that they liked their parking lot to be 100% their parking lot. And so they asked if, as a courtesy, if I would do anything. So I actually had a sign printed that said that the loft parking lot was in the rear. So it prevented people. There was also some stones that connected Da Vinci's to the loft, and I had those removed because I wanted to be the neighbor that Da Vinci's wanted us to be. So I had the stones removed, I planted trees to divide us, and I put a sign up that said, "You can't park here." So that is not an option for us. The Lee Douglas property employs 47 people, 47 total, but probably 30 of them are in Lincoln. So we currently lease from our tenant parking behind us. So we, on his, which is the dog wash, so we pay him for some of our employees to park back there now, and he's got marked the maximum spaces. So I just wanted to basically give you the situation that I was in from a parking standpoint, which is why I thought, okay, I've discovered a solution, which is there, which is when I found out that this was zoned differently. I don't know anything about how this works, but from what I'm hearing, I could build a house right there, right now, owning that property right up next to that other house, correct? So there are setbacks now for residential.
Yep.
Can those setbacks be the same? I mean, can we just?
That's what
That's what
that's
we
what
would-
I would like to do, is
Okay,
put
just to
this
protect them?
conditional zoning agreement in so that
Okay.
it would protect those setbacks, but you could still have your parking lot.
Okay, that's perfect, because I have no opposition to that, and I wouldn't do that ever anyway, but I understand the next owner might. So if that's something that can be considered, I would be happy with that solution.
And thank you for sharing the information about the park. I'm just trying to think outside the box and
Yeah,
all the
no, I
different
appreciate that.
options
I
that are
respect
out
that.
there.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Joy?
Jerry?
Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
I would move that we place this item on deferment for 2 weeks.
Second, core.
Discussion.
Well, I think we need to give the department time to construct the right thing that's going to meet the needs of both parties. I think that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate the applicant sharing kind of the situation, that's how it's evolved, and the neighbors coming forward and sharing. And my goal is just to find something that works for everybody involved.
Right.
And so, this way it'll kind of flush out some of that conversation I think that needs to happen, and we'll come up with a better solution for everybody.
Right.
Agreed.
In that time, I'd like the planning department to talk to the two parties too, and include them in the discussion.
Jerry?
Okay, this is for a 2-week deferral of item 3.1, changes zone 21030. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0. Okay, next item is item 4, actually, there's 2 associated items. Item 4.1A is change to zone 21028 from H1 Interstate Commercial to H4 General Commercial, and the associated special permit 21029 for planned service commercial with associated waivers. Both of these on property generally located at 4800 West O Street. Staff recommendation for both is conditional approval. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting the site?
No. Tom?
Tom Chaka, planning staff, 555 South 10th Street, Suite 213. These are 2 applications, a change of zone from H1 Interstate Commercial to H4 General Commercial, and a special permit for a planned service commercial on approximately 23.5 acres. The site is located at Northwest 48th and West O, which some of you may recall is the old shoemaker's site. That has since been demolished and it's vacant right now. So you can see the site here. The H1 district is interstate commercial, which is intended to serve highway travelers, very limited in the uses allowed in H1. Predominantly, it's for hotels, restaurants, truck stops, things that would cater to interstate travelers. There's only 2 other H1 districts in all of the city. And the city has been considering rezoning those 2 H1s and actually eliminating the H1 district from the zoning code. That's still something being discussed. So the H4 uses would allow quite a bit more and variety of uses, including such things as contractor yards, mini storage, still includes hotels, restaurants, retail, office. The special permit would allow up to 130,000 square feet of commercial floor area. And let's see. The site plan does show two streets that would access West O. There'd be Northwest 52nd Street and then a private road here. The private road would be limited to a right-in, right-out access only. 52nd Street would be allowed to have full turning movements, and in the future when traffic warrants or enough traffic is there, it would require a traffic signal in the future. The applicant did request a couple waivers. One was to reduce the internal setbacks to 0, and the other waiver is to allow cross parking. These are, fairly common waivers that you'll find in commercial centers, where you allow cross parking between the lots and setbacks to 0. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Tom?
The other two H1s that you're considering changing, would it be to H4?
Well, we're not actually looking at them right now. It's something that's been generally discussed in the past, but right now we're
would
not.
H4 be the logical change?
Possibly, we would have to look at what the zoning pattern is around those H1s. Sometimes it's H3.
Okay, thanks. And what's the difference between 3 and 4?
Off the top of my head, probably some different uses and setbacks, I believe.
Okay.
I have a question. So you mentioned setbacks are typically waivers, for this. What's the reason behind that?
Well, typically in these commercial centers, they're self-contained, and a lot of times they want the building closer to the lot line. For example, here's a lot line here. Just allows them some greater flexibility in placing the buildings.
And can affect parking.
Mm-hmm. Tom, could you pull up the first map you showed with the aerial shot, please? So, and could you point out the zoning right around this site, for example, to the west? What is that directly to the west?
This is H4.
That's H4. So there's H4 on both sides, and then there's a little bit of H3 to the south. And
This
ag.
is not ag anymore. It was recently rezoned H3.
Okay. Great. And the
This was also rezoned recently.
Great.
Which one did you point to?
To the
This one over here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm
Can't
sorry,
see
couldn't
it.
see.
Over here.
got it.
I think that's H3. Yeah, this was H3, H3, H3.
What's the little, oh, never mind, I see it now.
And the planned service, I'm trying to find the language here.
Can you give us some,
District,
can you give us some examples of that planned service commercial?
commercial, yeah.
I guess I'm not sure what you mean by examples.
Well, that's only within H4, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any other of that in the city of Lincoln? The planned service
Yeah,
commercial?
we have other planned service commercial districts in the city.
Can you give me like examples?
Where they
of
are?
that? Yeah.
Not off the top of my head, no. But I know we have them.
Asking the same thing that I already had written down was what, I'm not really sure what that means.
Well, the reason they had the option under H4, they could have just done a straight preliminary plat, but if you do a preliminary plat, you cannot ask for waivers to like reduce setbacks or other things. You have to abide by the strict zoning code of the H4 district. The planned service commercial, while it does eliminates some uses that would be allowed under H4. It does give you the flexibility to ask for those waivers.
Got it.
Steve Hendrickson, Planning Department. So the examples of the H4 actually wasn't part of the original 1979 zoning ordinance. It was created later. It was created specifically for the trade center at 56th and Highway 2 would be the first example. So that was the H4 zoning district. And then instead of having a use permit like our other districts, B2, O3, B5, at the time, at least, the discussion was, well, if there was some people who wanted to do H4 without any waivers, anything else, you could do it just straight away without a site plan. But if you wanted a site plan with some waivers of parking or height, a special permit was created, and that's the planned service commercial. Planned service commercial is not a separate zoning district, it's a special permit. So it's a special permit for planned service commercial, and the trade center was the first of those special permits. And now we have H4 all over the place. So for instance, it's gone from, it was meant to be a heavy commercial district that allow contractor yards, that type of thing, but also a certain amount of office and retail. So at South Point Pavilions, the southeast corner is actually H4. Now it looks like retail, like all the rest of the South Point 27th and Pine Lake intersection, but that was actually developed under an H4 special permit that also included the DeToe Chevrolet. Vavrina Meadows over on 14th Street, 14th and Yankee Hill Road, that was initially, or that still is H4. That was initially a special permit. It's now in a PUD for a variety of reasons, but that was another one. So we have a lot of different spots of it, but along West O Street, we have a lot of both H3 and H4 together. Both of them are heavy commercial. H4 just really has that option then for a special permit for planned service commercial, so you can have a site plan like this one, fulfill the role of a preliminary plat, but then it allows you to have some zoning waivers that you otherwise can't do in the straight H4 or in H3. And so that's why you see quite a bit of the H4, including up north. And to answer Dick's question, because I have looked at it, there's only two very small spots left of H1. And H1 is a very limiting zoning district. There's only a few uses allowed for it. It was meant to be the interstate rest stop, truck stop. Mm-hmm. And it just, quite frankly, isn't really used by anyone. I think there's probably less than 10 lots that use it. In one case, we probably would look at the adjacent H3, and the other one at 56th and I-80, most of it is actually H4, 56th and Arbor Road, so we'd probably look at the H4. But there's only 3 spots left, and if this is approved, there'd only be 2 spots, and it just doesn't really seem, with there's other surrounding zoning, to make much sense to keep this zoning district. But it's not high on our to-do list to get that done. It's on our someday list.
So basically, the planned service commercial in an H4 is just kind of like having a special permit in H4.
Yes, it's just a tool to allow for a site plan, to allow for perhaps a little more creativity in the design, or to address specific site conditions that the straight H3 and H4 can't do. But for some people, I'm just developing one lot. I know exactly what I want to do. I don't need any waivers. The H3 or using the H4 without the special permit works out fine.
Is it the occupants or the owner's ability from the initial plot plan they put out, or the lot plans that they've put out, to change or combine some of those? Or does that have to go through another?
So there's also the ability to do administrative amendments to special permits. And in many of these, we just have a note that says this is a conceptual plan. At final plat, you can move lot lines around. At building permit, you can move your building from this side to that side. So they're meant to more focus on the off-site improvements, the setbacks, make sure we get grading and drainage handled, turn lanes, all of those type of things.
And to be able to change lots as opportunities would
Correct.
come forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
Other questions for staff?
Yep. Have we heard anything back from LTU on the deviation request for that intersection that's a little bit closer?
You'll have to ask the applicant. LTU usually works directly with the applicant on that.
And then I noticed on the applicant's letter, they asked for another waiver talking about street frontage. That
Yeah,
wasn't
I
a-
believe I didn't put that in because they don't need it. All their lots have street frontage.
Okay, I wondered if that was not applicable. That's all mine, I think.
Anything else for staff? Thanks, Tom. Testimony from the applicant.
Hello, my name is Aaron Bright. I'm with Olson, 601 P Street, Lincoln. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Creek Carrier Corporation. And a couple good points already brought up here, specifically about the zoning and the site layout and some questions there. So good discussion, and maybe I'll try to offer a little bit of background here. The application that's in front of you is really as a result of probably, a lot of discussions over the past 12 months, specifically with Creek Carrier Corporation, but also with Planning Department and LTU on the traffic specifically. Earlier on in that process, the land that we're looking at under application right now was still under separate ownership. And so what we had been working on for Creek Carrier at that time was actually some potential access point modifications to their existing site. So Creek Carrier operates here, and they have existing access points, at total of actually 4 on their parcel. So some initial discussions were had with them, with LTU, related to some different functions and uses that Creek Carrier Corporation was trying to work on their internal site. Well, after some of those initial discussions, Creek Carrier was able to come to terms on the Shoemaker parcel, be able to purchase that, and that kind of changed things around for us, certainly in terms of the overall discussion. And so try to lay that in as best I can. So when we knew we were kind of ready to move forward, we met with Planning Department and kind of talked through, okay, here's our goals for the site. Specifically, one of the goals for Creek Carrier, what they've been working on over the past, slide this over just a bit, the past 12 months or so, is they've got a maintenance facility shop for their semi-trailers, so for work that they need to do on a day-to-day basis. This isn't a part of the application area, but just kind of some background frame of reference. And so from that, there's also, they're currently working on a paved parking lot for semi-trailers. So that's their drivers that would be able to come off the interstate, potentially if they have to go use the maintenance shop or other uses, there's actually going to be a paved instead of a gravel parking lot that's out there now. And we've kind of changed the configuration of that into more of a truck driver friendly situation in terms of circulation. So ultimately what kind of became a result of that is really a desire from Creek Carrier's perspective to be able to create Northwest 52nd Street as their primary entrance, or as an option as a primary entrance into that parking lot. Well, so as the purchase of the property that's under application now kind of developed, we met with Planning Department and said, hey, we don't know exactly what might go out here yet. We've got some layouts that we're looking at, different options for different users, but we have no idea what might go out there yet. And so that's where, working with Planning Department, they had really recommended us to move forward with the H4 planned service commercial. It gives us a lot of flexibility on overall layout, potential uses, square footage of property, et cetera. And so this is kind of, the layout that we come up with as a result of all those discussions to date. Specifically related to traffic, we did prepare and have had on occasion at least probably 3 to 4 meetings with City of Lincoln LTU Traffic Department. Ultimately, what we had come down to was eliminating several of the existing access points that were kind of already along this stretch of O Street here, and basically reducing those down to just 2 points of access under the area of application you're seeing here. One is the right in, right out between Northwest 48th and Northwest 52nd Street, and then a full access interchange at Northwest 52nd Street. As a part of that traffic study, we did have to submit a deviation request to LTU. I don't think that we've got a formal response or approval on the deviation request, although I think based on discussions with planning and traffic so far, the access points and right turn lanes that you're seeing here are what they're in agreement with. So anyway, I think that, sorry, that was kind of a lot to go through all there, but I got my 5 minutes used up.
You got one left.
I'll answer any questions anyone may have.
So that's on your letter, that's the right in, right out access, the waiver that you're talking about for that private roadway that's yet to be named.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Yep, I think ultimately this ends up being called probably Northwest 50th Street or something along those lines, but yes, the right in, right out access there. And then 52nd would be a full access point.
And then you eliminate some of the ones that are on the Creek Carrier property.
Correct. So I don't know how well this other one shows it, but there's actually one that's really close to Northwest 48th Street now. That it was just a right in, right out when they redid that intersection with the highway interchange project. And then there's the full access that they had closer to where the previous gas pumps were, and then there's one on the west edge. And so ultimately, yes, on the area of application, we are seeking to, we're removing one and then kind of relocating another one, and that one becomes a right in, right out only. As part of a previous work that Creek Care did on their site, they actually ended up eliminating 2 existing ones kind of associated with that other work that I described earlier.
And the main one to the office would remain.
Sorry, what?
The main entrance to the office would remain further west or further north.
Correct. Yep. Creek Carrier's current operations wouldn't change,
Okay.
other than Northwest 52nd Street being able to provide them truck access
Right.
to that parking lot.
Additional questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Testimony in support of this application? Is there any neutral testimony? And testimony in opposition? Additional questions for staff? No? I assume you're finished? No need for rebuttal? Okay.
I'd move we close the public hearing. Campbell?
Second, Core.
Jerry?
And this is on both the change of zone and the special permit.
Correct.
Okay. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
I would move that we approve change of zone 21028.
Second, Joy.
Discussion?
This looks like a good project, and being familiar with the Creek Carrier site and all of that, it is a very positive use for the corridor that had the service station on it.
I think the change to H4 makes sense because there's a lot of, there's already H4 surrounding it. And, there's H3 kind of in the same area, so I think that makes a good fit for the area. And speaking more to the special permit, I think it looks like a good plan.
I agree with my commissioners. I think that it's a good project for this area, and makes a lot of sense to move forward with this change of zone. Jerry?
Okay, this is for conditional approval of change of zone 21028. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
I would also move special permit 21029.
Second, Core.
Jerry?
This is for conditional approval of special permit 21029. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0. Okay, moving on. Item 4.2 is miscellaneous 21010, to review the proposed determination that the South 48th Street corridor redevelopment area be declared blighted and substandard as defined by the Nebraska Community Development Law. Study area is approximately 55 acres and is generally located in central Lincoln, encompassing all properties along South 48th Street between L and A Streets, along with the Tabitha Senior Care Campus and surrounding properties. Staff recommendation is a finding of substandard and blighted conditions. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed?
Yes, I attended a meeting hosted by Tabitha, I can't remember the date, but to discuss the blight study in our project with the 40th and A Neighborhood Association.
Okay. Noted. Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting the site?
I don't see any.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Dallas McGee. I'm with the City Urban Development Department, 555 South 10th Street in Lincoln. This item identifies an area along South 48th Street and looks at the Nebraska Community Development statutes to determine if it meets the standards for declaring it blighted and substandard. Got a map of the area. Okay, the area in question is identified in yellow on the map. Includes a stretch of 48th Street from L Street on the north all the way to A Street on the south. Properties on both sides of 48th Street. It does include the entire Tabitha campus between Randolph and J Streets. Tabitha hired the Hannah Keelan and Associates to conduct a study to see if it meets the conditions of blighted and substandard as defined by state law. The study looked at 12 different factors identified in the state statutes and found there was a significant presence of 7 of the 12 factors identified. The study then concludes that there are sufficient factors present to meet the criteria of substandard and blighted conditions. And we would recommend that you find that it meets those standards for declaring it to be blighted and substandard. Andrew Willis is here, who can talk more about the study as well as talk about the Tabitha development that's proposed in the area. But I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Dallas, I have one. What of the area that isn't highlighted on the third block down? Yep. What is that right in there? Because there's businesses along 48th in front of that.
Yes. I'd have to look at that for sure. It looks like residential, a piece of residential.
I can tell you, it's a small development of townhomes.
Got it.
That are not owned by Tabitha.
Got
They're
it.
individually owned.
Okay, thank you.
Most of the area is occupied by residential of either single-family homes, townhomes, or the Tabitha development.
Other questions?
How did, kind of speaking of, this kind of pocket that's in there, how was the boundary for the study determined?
I think Tim Thielen could not be here today. He could probably answer that very carefully, but he looked at a large area surrounding the Tabitha and looked specifically at the conditions that are identified in state statutes and looked where those are located. And with that, they determined that the corridor along 48th is where the largest percentage of conditions were present.
Do you know why they went clear down to A Street?
I would only be speculating. I do not know.
There's a lot of those properties along there that are fairly old.
I am.
Careful, my house is close here. We're all old. Come on now.
I am curious, if I can remember my question now, I'm just totally distracted. And I guess more for the record, If you could explain, I mean, this is obviously the first step in a process.
Mhm.
Why is this determination necessary in order to move forward with the process?
Yes, very good question. I should have kind of commented on that earlier. This is the first step in a process for a redevelopment project. In order to qualify for tax increment financing, an area must be declared blighted and substandard. That is the step that is before you today. You would make a recommendation to the city council. The city council would then make a determination whether they felt the area meets those conditions, and they could then declare it blighted and substandard or not. If they did, then we would then begin discussing with Tabitha a redevelopment plan area within the blighted area that we could identify the project. That plan area would be rather general. That would come back to you as well. And you would act on that to determine if it meets the comprehensive plan conditions. Once that is done, then the final step is to develop a redevelopment agreement with the developer, identifying in detail what that developer will do, what TIF would be generated, how the TIF would be used, and then that would go to the city council. They would act on it, and then once they act on it, we would have the ability, the developer would have the ability to proceed with development and secure tax increment financing assistance from the city.
So what are the ramifications for any private homeowner within this area if they're within the area that's been determined to be blighted?
You know, I don't think there are any immediate ramifications other than the sense that technically you're in an area that has been declared blighted and substandard, but that is a determination that needs to be made in order to allow tax increment financing to assist with public improvements in that area. There really is no other impact on the property owners.
And you mentioned 7 factors that were determined to be present out of 12. Is there a threshold that if so many factors are present, or is it more a little bit more movable in terms of?
I think
how
there
you
is
look
some
at that?
flexibility. I do think the statutes say that if a single factor is determined to be present in a significant amount, the area could be declared substandard and blighted. Now, 7 of the 12 were identified in different degrees of presence.
Other questions?
This is a project basically for Tabitha. And they're a not-for-profit. So do they still have the opportunity for TIF?
They would have to be, a not-for-profit does not pay taxes. So they would have to declare a LLC or some other entity that would be paying taxes so that there would be taxes generated. And that would then determine the amount of TIF that could be available.
Okay, thank you.
Dallas, I thought that recently their TIF opened up some possibilities for homeowners for certain financing or projects that they could undertake, and in addition to just, you know, like a big business applying for TIF. Am I understanding that correctly?
There is, and I don't have the details on that program, but it does allow homeowners to receive, I believe it's a $5,000 incentive to assist with their property.
So someone in this area, you know, if they wanted to do some home improvements, they could maybe be eligible for some of that incentive.
I believe that is true, yes.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
One quick thing, I don't believe, so on the homeowner, the tax credit project, or the tax credit matter, I should introduce myself, Tim C., City Law Department, 555 South 10th. That only applies in extremely blighted areas, and I don't believe that this property has applied to be declared extremely blighted, so that would not be available to, I don't want to create that misimpression out there.
I should have mentioned that it is, yeah.
Difference between blighted and extremely blighted.
Yep.
And
Yep.
only extremely blighted
Gets the tax
private
credits.
homeowners can, okay, thank you for
Yep.
clarifying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was the applicant, correct? So testimony in support of this application.
Good afternoon. Andrew Willis, 233 South 13th Street, on behalf of Tabitha. So I may try to add a little color to the questions that have already been answered. I'm going to put up to start just the redevelopment area there. So as Tabitha, and again, this is step one in hopefully an exciting project to come. We're not really talking about that today because this is just step one to get the area declared blighted and substandard so that we can get the redevelopment plan for the project. I'm happy to talk about it, but I guess mainly it's, this is step one to get there. So this would, the area would be declared blighted and substandard, which allows for the use of tax increment financing. When Tabitha went to Hannah Keelan and got them to do a study. Part of the thought process, obviously, this is the one, the Tabitha campus to be included, and then really focusing on that 48th Street corridor. And so that was, as far as designating an area, I would say there's some discussion of this is kind of what we're looking for, and the reason is there's a potential for some public improvements using TIF along that 48th Street corridor. It goes up to L, which I believe is where the 48th and O redevelopment agreement that exists kind of ends, but really they wanted to get down to A Street, and that was the, in one sense, the guiding factor, but then it's really left up to the consultant. The study goes through and shows, and Dallas already talked about, the study goes pretty well through the blighted and substandard conditions. Just to kind of go backtrack and answer, typically there's a set of subjective conditions, and then it has to meet one of 5 objective categories. So it meets a substantial presence 7 out of the 12 of these subjective categories, and it must meet one. And the one that it meets is that the average age of the homes is over 40 years, or the average age of the buildings is over 40 years. So that's kind of step, there's kind of 2 pieces of that, but it did meet that, and the blight study goes through those really well. But that's kind of the area that was decided. Unfortunately, we have the term blight, which, if we could just change that term, I think we would have a different discussion a lot of times. But Tabitha has tried to engage the neighborhood associations and the neighbors, and really tried to there's been a lot of meetings involved. And so one thing I want to really comment, or I guess that I'm going to bring up today, is as part of these meetings and the discussion with the neighbors and the neighborhood associations, one item that has, again, was raised is these homeowners here on 46th Street between Randolph and L. So as you can see, from the area, whoops, that's not right. There it is. Okay. So if you look at the entire area, we've got the corridor, Tabitha, and then there was this little extension out. And so those homeowners said, well, why is our property included in this blight and substandard area? My first answer is, well, that's what the consultant did, but they want a better answer, and it was really kind of creating this buffer, as because you're looking at an entire area, what could happen in the future and where this is, and so they were thinking that's just this possible buffer. Well, around Tabitha. Well, through conversations with the neighbors, Tabitha trying really to make sure that everyone that they are playing, they are good neighbors and that everybody's excited about this project. They said, well, we don't necessarily care if that piece is included. Where this redevelopment project will be coming is actually kind of north here, just so you know in the future. But so what I would like to propose, and I will hand a couple of things over here. Sorry, I'm not quite organized. Here we go. This is a letter from Tim Keelan at Hannah Keelan. And then this is the map I have up there. And then I'm going to hand you 2 more things. One is, and I'll explain what I've just handed you as well, and I'll put them up here. So the letter from Hannah Keelan, basically we said, to Tim Keelan, what would happen to this study if we removed those houses? The letter basically is his conclusion that it doesn't change any of his conclusions. It still meets all the blight and substandard conditions. It doesn't change any of the overall conclusions of the study. That would be 10 parcels. Which I've turned this in as well. There's those 10 parcels. Sorry, that will be identified as those houses along 46th Street. Essentially, taking those out of the area. Again, it doesn't change the blight and substandard conditions, but it's Tabitha's way of just listening to the neighbors as they communicated and as they went through this process. So I'm happy to answer any other questions about the blight study itself. I think that was laid out pretty well. Excuse me, but. I guess we would make a recommendation on behalf of Tabitha, or a request that the recommendation would be approval of the blight and substandard study with the removal of those 10 parcels on 46th Street between Randolph and L, that residential strip, just again, as part of the accommodation of the neighbors. And again, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
There's only 8 marked on that list.
I've got 8 up here, and then there's 2 right down at the bottom.
Look at these 2 down here.
Oh.
And I've got the other list as well. So there's 2 they start right here.
Yep. And then there's...
And 8 up top, I think.
Yep.
Good.
Yep, okay.
And it's about 2.3 acres, that parcel. So this is it was about 55 acres total was this blight and substandard area. That brings it down to 52 and a half or 53. And that was all residential. And again, Tim Keelan's letter, basically, he's just concluding or verifying that it doesn't change, like the blight and substandard conditions were well dispersed. It's not, and pulling that out won't change his opinions or his conclusions at all.
Other questions for Andrew?
Thank you.
Other testimony in support? Any neutral testimony? And testimony in opposition? Staff questions? Okay.
So I have one.
Oh, yep. One staff question. Dallas.
So with the removal of those 10 homes, how does that change the criteria for the financing, the tax financing?
I'm sorry, change the criteria for what?
The TIF.
Oh, it would mean that TIF could not be used in the area where those 10 homes are located, and TIF could not be generated by those homes. So if they increase in value, that would not benefit the district at all. But if there are public improvements related to those homes, that could not be made if they're taken out of the district.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Applicant, anything else to say?
I would move to close the public hearing.
Second, Joy.
Jerry?
Okay. Let's see here. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-0.
I would move that we approve miscellaneous 21010 with the elimination of those 10 lots.
Second, Ball.
Discussion.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think this helps Tabitha pull their campus together better. There's been pieces of it to the north that have been added with some of the living units. And I think they're trying to unify the campus a lot more.
I want to just thank Andrew and the people with Tabitha for working with the neighborhood and listening to the conversation and trying to adapt to some of their requests. I do want to go on record, though. So often we think that blight, it has that negative connotation to it, and that isn't necessarily true. So, and I just want to say, like, just because a house is over 40 years old doesn't mean that it's, you know, unlivable or uninhabitable or undesirable. Some of us, like me, really want that. Don't, there's not a bad connotation there is what I'm trying to say.
I have a house over 40 years old, too.
Other comments? I think that the blight study definitely lays out the factors that have been met in this place, in this situation. Appreciate as well the concessions that have been made to accommodate the neighborhood, and understand that Tabitha is very interested in being a great neighbor going forward. Jerry?
Okay, this is for the finding of substandard and blighted conditions for miscellaneous 12011 as amended, removing the 10 residential properties along the west side of the street of 46th Street, J to Randolph Streets. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Raymond Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Okay. Item 4.3 is special permit 21020 to allow for a community unit plan for 21 lots with associated waivers on property generally located at Southwest 42nd Street and West Martell Road. Staff recommendation is conditional approval. This is final action on this item unless appealed to the county board within 14 days. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this item?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting the site?
No. Tom?
Tom Chaka, planning staff. So this is a special permit for a community unit plan out in the county at approximately Southwest 42nd and West Martell Road. Happens to be just a little bit north of Blue Stem Lake. So all of this dotted pattern is the boundary of the community unit plan. Blue Stem Lake is down here. Southwest 42nd, West Martell Road. Each lot is proposed to be between 3 to 4 acres in size and will have their individual wells and wastewater systems. There were 4 test wells drilled on the site by Mosier Well Drilling Company. 1 on the west side of Southwest 42nd and 3 on the east side of Southwest 42nd Street. His report showed that there was adequate water for these 21 lots, and that it would not have a negative impact on other wells in the surrounding area. Site is Martell and Southwest 42nd are gravel streets here, but they are only 1 mile from a paved street in 3 directions, north, south, and east. There, as you can see on this aerial, there is an existing acreage development to the south here. I believe that has 21 or 25 lots in that development. That was done, not sure, prior to 79. I know it was done prior to our 20-acre rule, so it's been there for quite some time. I'll show you the site plan. They do propose 2 new streets to access Martell. This is 42nd, so there'd be a new street here and here. So all the lots are, pretty much close to Martell Road, and all the rest of this areas remain open space. The community unit plan does require that 70% of the total area remain as open space, which in this case was 239 acres required to be open space, and they're showing 261 acres. So they have more than what's required. These lots that back on to Martell are required to relinquish direct access to Martell Road. So
You said they are?
they are required to relinquish access. So all the access will be off the streets. Individual lots will not have direct access. I think that's everything I have.
Tom, can you tell me why such an odd shape for our CUP? Is it just like based on ownership or?
Yeah, I believe that's true. And to get the number of lots, they have to be. Just quickly go over the density calculations and how they arrived at this. Is you take the total area of the CUP and you divide by 20, since the minimum lot size in AG is 20 acres. Then they get a 25% bonus for preserving open space. So you take the total, divide by 20, get a 25% bonus, and if it's 0.5 or above, you can round up to the next number. So calculations work out to 21 dwelling units. And those dwelling units can be as small as 3 acres if you have an individual wastewater system. If you did a community system, then they could be smaller than 3 acres.
I noticed that there were a couple of existing farm accesses that were going to remain. I found one of them, but I think maybe there were 2. Can you show me where those are at?
Maybe the applicant knows.
Okay.
I don't know offhand.
Tom, this may be a question for the applicant also, but with their having basically 30 acres extra with their bonus and everything, why did they not plot a few more lots than the 21?
Because you're still, the density calculations is 21 lots. That's all you can have.
Got it.
They could have made the lots a little bigger if they wanted to.
Yeah.
The letter of opposition that we received referred to Highway 33 and concerns on a turn lane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming Highway 33 is West Martell?
No.
Roca.
No.
Oh, it's
Road.
Roca. Okay,
Roca Road.
got it. Thank you. Because West Martell is a gravel road, correct?
Correct.
But Roca's paved.
Roca Road is paved. It's Highway 33.
Got it.
This is reviewed by the county engineer. They did not have any concerns. I guess I shouldn't speculate, but I think with the houses being on Martell,
Instead of Roca.
I could see, maybe quite a bit of traffic just coming down Martell Road, but I could also see it coming down Roca because it's a highway. So
I can tell you that now that I drive that road every day, 5 days a week, the last 2 days I've had
Which road?
Roca.
Okay.
The last 2 days I've had people pull out in front of me on that 42nd and Roca Road when they shouldn't. They should have waited for me to go by before. But I think what's generating it is on the corner of Southwest 42nd and Roca, there's I think it's a seed company or there's a business there. It's the northwest corner, and people are pulling in and out of there and not waiting for traffic on Highway 33.
Got it. Thank you.
It's dangerous.
Other questions for Tom? Thank you.
okay.
So testimony from the applicant.
Dan Rosenthal, Riga Engineering, 601 Old Cheney Road, Suite 8, Lincoln, Nebraska. I guess I have, I don't know if you can see this right here. I believe one of the driveways is right here, and over here.
Okay, do you pointing again for me? I'm sorry.
Right here,
Okay,
right here,
okay.
and assume right there. So I think they'd probably get access off this road.
Oh, so those are the existing farm accesses?
Yeah,
Okay, I found one of them, and it's not one of them that you pointed at.
I think
It's
it's right here.
right here.
Over there.
Yeah.
Oh, those three there then, probably. 1, 2, 3.
So two of them now are kind of close to where streets will be in the future.
Right, right.
Okay.
So like Tom said, they relinquish access, direct access to the streets. And then you can see the hatching right here. They're going to dedicate right away here, over here, and up here to the county for future paving of the roadway system someday.
Awesome. Thank you for pointing those out.
Sure. Any questions for me at all, or?
Any questions for the applicant? I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Testimony in support of this application? Is there any neutral testimony?
I'm Robert Deshane, 4560 West Bluestem Road. We've lived in that. I'm also the president of the Bluestem Heights Neighborhood Association. So that's that subdivision of acreages just to the south of that. There are some concerns that people in our neighborhood have voiced. There are several times through the year that Southwest 42nd, which is the main access between our subdivision and Highway 33, which is Roca Road, becomes almost impassable because of mud. And so we would suggest that if possible, the developer be required to pave the Southwest 42nd Street, or else to make that work. I know there's a mention a second ago that West Martell Road would get a lot of traffic. It obviously would get more with the increased property numbers of properties there of homeowners. But right now, that almost becomes a secondary access for us. When it becomes extra muddy, and it's about 4 times a year, if we get more than 2 inches, 2.5 inches of rain, it's just a mud hole. And so people will choose to take West Martell Road because it's a little less of a mud hole. But that leads you into Martell. And then it's all going to be dirt access until you get into Martell if you're going to try to go north or south. So we're concerned about the increased activity. We were concerned about also the water table with increased, 20 plus more wells out there, plus 20 more sanitation systems out there, what that was going to do. And so we're a little relieved to hear that there's an impact study that said that the wells wouldn't be affected, but sanitation out there is also a difficulty. Probably half of our properties have to have open sewage lagoons because the clay soil does not allow us to put in a drain field. So those are just all concerns. We would just want them addressed by any developer.
Sir, you mentioned that you were part of the acreage development to the south.
Yeah, this is Bluestem Heights neighborhood. Yes.
Those acreages that are on West Martell, do they exit onto Martell Road directly?
Yeah, there are 2 there that do.
Okay.
Actually, one from the south, and then there's a new home just the lot west of where this new development is proposed, brand new home there that accesses directly onto Bluestem or West Martell Road. And then West Martell Road, just south, going west from there, takes you to Bluestem Lake on the northeast corner of the lake, which is camping. And so we get a lot of, in the summer, we'll get a lot of campers and actually, people pull in big livable campers to go there for the summer, because that's the more rustic version of the camping sites on Bluestem Lake, but still it gets heavily traveled. Any other questions? Like I said, I'm the president of the neighborhood association. It have been for many years.
Questions?
The homes in our area were built in about 1970. Ours was 78, and I think we were one of the originals.
Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other neutral testimony? Testimony in opposition? Yeah.
Hello, well, that's loud. My name's Gary Hinckley, Hinkley, and I live at 15901 Southwest 42nd Street, which is about a mile from this proposed development, and right behind that seed dealer that you mentioned. So I have 5 people in our family, 3 kids, that are always pulling out on South.
Oh, it's you? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just hoping that none of them pulled out in front of you. But yeah, three kids driving. So I wrote this up, and I'm much better at reading than I am at speaking extemporaneously, so if you'd permit me to do that.
Of course.
So thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed special permit 21020. I believe we represent the opinion of the neighbors I've spoken with when I assert that this proposed development is not in the interest of the landowners in the vicinity. We believe that the notion of multiple dwellings in such a comparatively small area is contrary to the character of our agricultural community. This area is zoned agricultural for a reason. There are valid reasons that zoning regulations and prohibitions were established to protect farmers and country dwellers from encroachment by developers. The protection that zoning officials provided originally should not be abandoned for the profit of very few and the detriment of the character and culture of the Martell community. Our primary concerns revolve around 3 things: increased traffic on a dangerous highway with no turn lanes in place currently. And I tell my kids, do not pass on that highway, period. Whatever circumstances present, just don't pass, because it's a really wicked highway. Impingement of our water table, and I'm encouraged that they think that currently there would not be a problem with the wells. I don't know how long that's going to last, but I can tell you that west of us, there was one of the farmers that when they were using water, they couldn't take a shower if somebody nearby was using water as well. So, no pun intended there. So I am concerned that yeah, maybe for now, but the more development that goes in and the way that the environment and climate is going, I hope we have water in the future. And encroachment of our privacy. Those would be the 3 things. In short, too many people had changed the current agricultural area into a substantially more urban area. The permit application already contains the plans for more roads, more lots, and more development. The fact that this development requires waivers implies that the concept is generally not considered advisable. Please do not allow exceptions that harm our existing neighborhood. If the permit application area were to be broken up, we would support keeping the agricultural zoning and making individual smaller tracts of land available for farmers to purchase for agricultural use. We'd like to see it stay agricultural, and if that's too big a plot of land and nobody can afford to buy the whole thing, then we would prefer that it be sold off in smaller parcels so that people could farm it. And we have friends that I think in the area that would do that. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Other testimony in opposition? Staff questions?
I do have one, but I don't know if Tom's gonna be able to answer it, but we'll try. Do you know for something like a turn lane there, is that justified by by the count? Like the count of the traffic has to be high enough for that?
I don't know for sure, but I would probably say so. And that would, be up to the county engineer whether or not, and it's also a state highway, so the state would be involved also.
Okay. And that would be whether it would be like a left turn lane or a right turn lane or?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And the same would be true if they had a flashing warning light at that intersection.
Right, that would be up to the county engineer.
And the state.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I would move that we close the public hearing. Oh, sorry.
But we have to give the applicant time for
Yep.
rebuttal. So we will not close the public hearing quite yet.
Well, thank you. We just did some really quick calculations, and the average peak AM would be about 26 vehicles in a 2-hour period, so we're talking about 13 vehicles an hour. That would never warrant a turn lane. I guess to kind of just discuss some of the things that were talked about is this development is here by right. There's nothing that we're doing outside the ordinary. These types of projects, the developer never pays for the roadway system. That'd be something that the local people would have to talk to the county engineer about paving those roads. That's something that this development would not have to pay for. So I guess I'm going back to there's nothing out of the ordinary. This project should be built by right. Any questions?
Anything else?
And it's really up to the county engineer and/or the traffic volumes as far as like improving that road, whether that be paving or regrading or,
Right.
I'm not familiar with all the terms, but.
Yeah, I mean, we can't control the frost coming out of the ground in the springtime. Perhaps some of the problem is that this is currently ag, and maybe ag trucks, bigger trucks are driving it to take their produce to the market or something. That may go away. Who knows?
That being said, I mean, Southwest 42nd is, kind of a significant, kind of runs right through this development, correct?
Correct.
And so even in the area on the south side, at this point, the intention is to keep that gravel throughout the development. And
correct. And if you just pencil out, if you just average, let's go to water for a minute. If you average, let's say, 35 gallons per minute per house, which it's a lot of water for a 24-hour period, the farmer, by state statute, could put in an irrigation well, pump 750 to 1,000 gallons per minute. That could be for 4 months. That would really draw down the aquifer. So even though this project could go away, the farmer could put a pivot in there and still be where you're at today or a lot worse off. And per the testimony from, or the letters from Alan Mosier, he said there's plenty of water here, so.
any other questions? Thank you.
Welcome.
Now I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second, Core.
Jerry?
Okay, Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
I would also move to approve special permit 21020 to allow the CUP.
Second, Core.
Discussion?
I think it was well pointed out by the applicant that this is within the rights, the rules and everything that we have in place. I think Mosier has at this time answered the water considerations for the area, noting both an upper and a lower aquifer in this area. And with already existing CUPs around it, I see no reason that this shouldn't be approved.
Anyone else?
I can understand the neighbors' request that this remain agricultural. But like the applicant said and Commissioner Campbell said, this is their right to develop their land. I mean, I wish, sometimes that we could offer it to sale, in bits and pieces so we could keep it agricultural, but it looks like the owner doesn't want to do that for this. So we have to evaluate this on what is proposed.
And I do appreciate also the rural concern with the ag. It does protect the majority of the land, and it brings it back into off of Martell. So potentially they could drive in towards the town that's just there to the east and take that paved road up to 33 since it's focused to the south of all of the land. So from a development standpoint, it feels like the engineer did a great job of trying to protect and create that area that could be farmed and left as open area.
And that's the benefit of this, the bonus density, so that we can leave as much open space as possible and kind of have those clusters and kind of get to the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I agree. This is certainly allowed within our current zoning. The waivers that are requested are make sense, especially in a rural environment, and with the more than 70% met that's being kept undeveloped. I think it makes sense to move forward. Jerry.
Okay, this is for the conditional approval of special permit 21020. Again, this is final action on this item unless appealed to the county board within 14 days. Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. Take a motion for adjournment.
I so move to adjourn.
Second core.
Jerry.
Okay, Ball?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Ryman Yost?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
And Core?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. We are adjourned.